Hello and welcome to the Side One YouTube channel. My name is Ray, and in this video, part 6 of setting up OpenPNP on the Microsmt pick and place machine version 3. We're going to look at setting up some feeders. Now, I've done a little bit of experimentation here to make sure I got the process sorted. So let's go through the process and have a look at what we're doing. So I'm just going to go to existing feeder. In this case, we're going to be looking at Bing feeder number 37 8mm. So when you create a feeder, you want to give it a name that makes sense to you. So in this case, this one does make sense to me. And if I click on this icon down here, it will bring my camera to show me that part. Now, if I switch up to 10mm movements and I go up, you can see this is a 1K part. And if you look over in the middle of the table over here, you'll see that I've got it set up for a 1K part. So I'm going to show you how we do this. We're going to set up this 68 ohm resistor next to it. So we'll just jog across a little bit for that one. Switch down to 1mm, get us to roughly where we want to be. And up here, we're going to click on the plus to create a new feeder. It's going to be a reference auto feeder. We'll accept that. If we double click here, we can now change its name. So this is another one of the Bing feeders. This one will be on port 38, and it's also an 8mm unit. The part we're going to be dealing with is going to be 68R. We saw that on that label. And we're going to save roughly this current position, since we're roughly in the right spot. And we can actually zoom in on that. And you can see that it does say 68. Yeah, it's upside down, but 680. We need to, down here, select Mega A 4mm. And I just had a thought for something else. This one's going to be 38.000. And we can apply that. Now, the next thing we want to do is move to put the nozzle over the top. And we're going to move the nozzle down. And this is the part that you're not going to be able to see too well with my camera setup. We're going to move the part down. So I'm going to use this down arrow until the nozzle is just above the part. Check to make sure it's pretty close to lined up on the part. I think I might go to 0.1. It's a little bit better. I'm just starting to compress the spring in the nozzle at the moment. So what I'm going to do is click on this icon up here, which will save the current Z height as well as the X and Y position as updated. I can now go back up to a safe height. And if we move back to here, you can see that part, and it's a little more centered than what it was. So now that we've done that, we can apply that. And that's the nozzle part, or the feeder part done. Theoretically, if I click on test, it feeds up the next one. So that part's ready. We've set it for the right package. So let's go back to our packages. Actually, let's go back to our job. Or parts, sorry, parts. There's our 68 ohm resistor there. We don't have anything set up for the bottom camera. So what we're going to do is specialize that one. But before we can do that, we need to pick the part, and then we can look at testing it. So first thing we're going to do is use this icon. That'll tell to pick the part. Yeah. Doesn't mean no valid feeder found. I've even programmed a height for it. Essentially, I set the same height for all of the 0805 resistors. Oh, you have to enable it. Something important to remember. Now, if I go back to parts, I can pick the part. And then if I go to specialize and test alignment, you can see the part is on there. And what we need to do is get it so it outlines those two pads. And we do that by moving this threshold until we see two pads. Just like that, and then we can apply it. So I think that worked. Let's try setting it to 45 degrees. And test alignment. Well, it did rotate it. It seems to be working. It looks pretty horizontal to me. So we have now got that part now tested. It is being calibrated for visual location of it and rotation. So I'm happy with that. The next thing we can go is back to the job and we can see what parts we've done. So I've actually done quite a few already. There's a few I've not done yet as well. So let's go back and do our next one. The next one I want to do is going to be my LED. So before we do that, let's just discard the part. Now I did change my mounting method, and so I've had to set up a new part discard location on that mounting method. So these are 8mm square little pockets, and they're right across. Actually, you can probably see it better with this if I turn off the cameras, the lights. So you can see all of these little pockets all the way across on my boards up here. I also had to array or reset the board position in the job, which is up here. Just a tip, once you've got your board position worked out, which we did in the last video, make sure you make a note of your settings, because it did lose my settings, which was annoying. Okay, let's go back to feeders and we'll add another one. Okay, so easiest way to get to it is going to be go to this one, move to it, and now I can just go sideways by around about 15, 20 mil. And that's the LED. Save that one. Moving the nozzle over. I forgot to discard that other part. Jog 1 millimeter and down. Let's save that. Move to a safe position. So in theory, I can move back and you can see that. And if I zoom out, you can see on this 68 ohm resistor on the left, you can see the part that we picked before. So let's pick that part. How about we select the part? All right, so it's selected the part. Let's go to Parts, find our LED, which we're on, specialize for this one, and test the alignment. That will move the part over it. Don't be surprised if it fails the first time you move it over. We use that test button just to get it there to begin with. Now we can start to change the threshold. I think we're picking up something outside the, here we are. That's better. So now we've picked up the part. We can apply that. In theory, we should be able to change this to 90 degrees. Test alignment. And it's rotated it correctly. Excellent. So we have yet another part done. We have a height of 0.8 millimeters. This is one I've already recorded in there. You can get a lot of this information from the data sheet for the parts, or you can get your calipers out and measure them. It's fun measuring them with tweezers and the calipers because they're very small values, as you can see. All right, so what else have I got left? Let's just discard that part. Just missed it. But yeah, moves over. I've got one of these spots allocated for discarded parts. Now I'm using this for a tray of parts, and I have some INA 215s in there, so we will fill that up shortly. But before we do, let's go back to our feeders. Move over. Sorry. We will go back to our jogging, 10 millimeters. Find out what our next feeder is. So our next feeder is a 75K in position 40. So we will add an auto feeder. Our part's going to be 75K. Well, that LED, we'd better enable that too. And we'll enable this one. So move over and back down. So we're going to save that current position. And we also have to remember to set up our Mega A 4 millimeter. And it will be at 40. Apply that and do a test pick. It is feeding. You may have to look at that spring that pulls the tape off. Here's our part. I think we can move down a fraction. Save that. It didn't do a pick. Okay, it did do a pick on the second attempt. I mustn't have saved the height properly. So we need to specialize. We need to do a test alignment. That will bring the part over to the bottom camera. And let's start adjusting our threshold. And that looks pretty good. So let's set our placement angle at 90 and do a test alignment. Okay, so this is our next problem. It wants to realign where it is. So we have a pick tolerance on our nozzles. And at the moment, the tolerance for our nozzle, it's too far off. So it was trying to go for 0.667 and our tolerance is set at 0.5. So I'll come back to the reasons for that in a sec, but let's just zoom in and you can see bits of the nozzle around here, but it's holding it. It appears to be okay. So I think we can increase our tolerance. So if we go to machine setup and we go to our nozzle tips. Now the nozzle tip I have installed at the moment is the CN100. And it has a max pick tolerance of 0.5. So our error was 0.66. So let's take this to say 0.7. So 0.700. Now this is going to introduce another little issue with our minimum part diameter, which needs to be at least twice that of the pick tolerance. So this will be 1.4. And apply that. Once that's applied, we can go back to our part and we can do another test alignment. And now it's happy. So if you're finding your parts are coming out, the alignment's not quite right, there's two possibilities of what went wrong there. I could have had my nozzle out slightly by 0.01, 0.02 millimeters. So if we continue to get that same issue, then that's the other one we can look at adjusting so that we get consistent pick position. All right, so that's, I've got provision for one more auto feeder, Bing AutoFeeder on my rack there, but I haven't got anything in it. I don't think. No, I haven't got anything in it at the moment, but I could put something in it. But we'll leave that one for now. I do have some more capacitors I do want to put in eventually for a modified version of this, but that will use extra parts, but I'll install them at a later date. Okay, so let's look at our next major problem, and that's going to be our INA 219s. That's these parts here. So let's go to feeders. We're going to add a feeder, and this one's going to be a reference tray feeder. Accept that. Okay, so the part we're going to be using for that is going to be our INA. So we'll set it up first. There it is. And we're going to have to find that. Before we do that, let's just discard this part and switch to our top camera. And we're going to jog this down till we find it. So let's get our jog controls back up, set to 10 millimeters, and move down to where our parts start. So these are the parts that I'm interested in. Switch to 1 millimeter increments. So we want to aim for the middle of this square. I could have made these squares smaller. They're 8 millimeters and there's a 1 millimeter boundary between each one. So I think that's pretty close to square. So I'm going to save that. Offset. Now, you can jog over and put the offset in yourself, or if you already know what it is, you can manually enter it. Since I know that these squares are 8 millimeter by 8 millimeter and there's a 1 millimeter divider, our offset for our next part is going to be 9 millimeters. And for our Y going down, it's going to be the same. Now, one thing they do tell us in the manuals for this is these have to be X, Y, 90 degrees. They can't do an odd angle. Not yet, anyway. So in here, we're going to go 3 across and 3 down. And we will enable that and apply. And we now have it all set up. Now, might give this a name. So we'll just call it tray feeder. And I'm going to call it left, because I am using other positions for things like discard. I can put more parts in here and actually increase the X count so that there's more than, say, 3 slots. So if I move to, say, here, you can see I've only got 8 parts in here, but this tray feeder is fairly wide, which is allows me to use different areas of it for different components, and I will need to do that. All right, let's go back to parts. Find our part. And we want to do a specialize for that. So what we're going to do is do a pick, test alignment. All right, so this could be a problem because there's no part on there. So there's a couple of possibilities there, one of which is my nozzle is too small for that part. Or I missed a step. Let's go back to feeders. I forgot to set the height. Okay, let's give that a try again. So in parts, we'll do the pick, do the test, and it still didn't pick the part. Oh, that's why. It missed by a long shot. Oh, I see what's going on. All right, so I successfully picked that part. Test alignment. I may have to seriously look at a bigger nozzle for this, I think. It is picking it up, but if we increase our threshold too much more on that, we may have trouble picking up our smaller parts. So let's try using a different head. So in our machine setup, I'm just going to discard that part while I think about it. I think a CN140 would be good. Maximum pick tolerance, we'll set that at around about 4 millimeters. Which means that's going to be 2 millimeters. Under heads, all right, now I just have to find my 140 and put in there. It's my 140. So under packages, we can select our SOIC. We've got 2 chips that use that package. We can go to nozzle tips and we can unselect what we don't think is going to work properly. And I think the 140 and the 220 will work. So I'm just going to put that chip back in its little hole. And it did pick from the bottom one. So if we go back to that, actually let's reset that. All right, do a pick. Oh, yeah, do a pick. Go back to test alignment. It missed. That got it. Move my mouse into the right screen. Excellent. It's working. So let's just discard that part. Okay, so I've got it all enabled. So let's go back to jobs and see what we've got left. So all my small caps are done. My LED, I've already pre-done my 2 SOTs, although I know I haven't done the visual calibration on those ones yet. On my 220Rs, down here I have got all my INAs are done. I've got my 210Ks here. I've got all these still to do. And I've got a lot of other parts still to be done. So the basic process, we need to go into parts. We need to tell it the height of each of the parts. So that's very important. We need to tell our feeders where they are, define our feeders, set them up. Once we've got our feeders set up, we need to then go into our parts, select our parts, and we need to calibrate the bottom vision for each of our parts. And they're easy to tell which ones we've done. So if you look over in this bottom vision section, anything we've got an entry in there, we've done a calibration on it. So I've just done this one here. That was the last one we did. There's the LED we did. We've got the 68, the 68 ohm and the 75k resistors we did today. Previously, I've done the 10k 100 nanofarad capacitor and the 220 ohm resistors. So I've got to go through and complete the SOT23 and I've also got to define this 2512 metric. So I think that's a good one to do. So let's go back to our feeders, parts. This is going to be a strip feeder. We'll accept that. This is a 12mm part, so pretty sure that's where I put it. Actually, I've already got a predefined strip feeder, so I might just the fourth one down. So I might just delete that instead and redefine this one. So the part will be this one, which is our 0.005 ohm resistor or 5 milliohm resistor. And I need to set up where it is. So let's just apply that for the moment. Machine setup, I think, is where we do that. Here we go. Camera top. It's a fairly large piece. I might use the CN 140 nozzle. Back to jog. Make sure we're looking at a camera view. That was the part I just discarded. I'll have to peel some of that strip back. Right, let's zoom in a little bit. Now I'll have to set the height of the nozzle. So to do that, let's move it over the position. Okay, so let's see if we can do an auto setup on that. Clear plastic. Try again. Okay, so it's having trouble with this one, so I'm going to have to probably get in and tweak the pipeline. While I can see all the holes in our video feed, the computer vision is having trouble seeing them. So this is what I'm going to have to come back to. The other components will be in strip feeders as well, so I'll go through and I'll configure those. The next step after configuring these will be to do a dry run test, dropping parts on the board to make sure they actually meet up where they're supposed to be and to confirm that it's all working. And then we can actually do a real run with a part that has had solder paste stenciled on. Right, to see when we get to those videos, don't forget to click on like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. It's a form of support that helps the channel a great deal and costs you absolutely nothing. If you'd like to help the channel further, I do have both Patreon and YouTube membership, and you can join my VIP patrons GoLucky, Jeff Jerde, and Keres Contorni, and my Builder patrons Al Morales 45, Andrew Cardone, Airgar69, as well as my YouTube member Joel Hauxwell in helping to support the channel. All my members get these videos about a week early before the rest of YouTube does. If you've got any questions, feel free to leave a comment below or drop into my Discord. There will be links to my Discord as well as the Microsmt Discord server. And we'll see you in the next video.